Nangal greeting Sir Janus, this is our group project. Procedure for an hands-on activity. Consider student class having a ID, first name, last name, course, and a subject class having ID, subject name, and units. Implement class association. As the relationship between the two classes, you are about to identify the multiplicities needed ordering the real-world scenario. Example, single student can enlist multiple subject from the list available subject. Same student can enroll the same subject. There can be more than one word of a student. There can be more than one available subject for enlistment. No duplicate subject can be enrolled in the single student. All student can remove a selected enlisted subject. Identify the methods to be used and in what class it should be properly defined.
Hello, greetings everyone. I'm Carlo Renzi Antioquia and I'm here to explain my part in our group project. Instance variable. ID. An integer that represents the student unique identifier. First name. A string that holds the student first name. Last name. A string that holds the student's last name. Course. A string that represents the course the student is enrolled in. Enrolled subjects. A list, specifically an array list of subject objects that stores the subject in which the student is enrolled. So, let's move on to the constructor. The class has a constructor with parameters to initialize the student ID, first name, last name, and course. It is also initializes the enrolled subject list as an empty array list. Enrolled subject method. This method is used to enroll the student in a subject. It takes a subject object as a parameter. It checks if the subject is not already in the enrolled subjects. This using the contains method. If the subject is not already enrolled, it adds the subject to the enrolled subject list. Remove subject method. This method is used to remove a subject from the list of objects, rather subjects, in which the student is enrolled. It takes a subject object as a parameter and removes it from the enrolled subject list. Get ID method. This is a getter method for retrieving the student's ID. This student's class allows you to create student object with the specific information and manage the enrollment in various subjects. You can add a subject to a student enrollment and remove them as needed. The student's ID, first name, last name, course, and enrolled subject can be accessed and manipulated using the provide methods. So, I will introduce the next reporter, which is Axel Rota.
My name is Axel Jones Rota and I'm going to explain about method. Get first name method. This method is used to retrieve the first name of the student. It returns the value of the first name instance variable, which should be a string. Get last name method. This method is used to retrieve the last name of the student. It returns the value of the last name instance variable, which should also be a string. Get first method. This method is used to retrieve the course in which the student is enrolled. It returns the value of the course instance variable, which is expected to be a string. Get enrolled subjects method. This method is used to retrieve the list of subjects in which the student is enrolled. It returns the value of the enrolled subjects instance variable, which is a list, especially an array list of subject object. These getter methods are essential for encapsulation and provide controlled access to the private instance variables of the student class. By making these instance variables private and providing public getter methods, you allow other parts of the program to access the data of a student object without directly accessing or modifying the object's internal data. This is a fundamental principle of object-oriented programming, promoting data integrity and security. And the next reporter is Iscarus.
Yes, third part. Private instance variable. In ID, this variable represents a unique identifier for the subject. String subject name, it holds the name or title of the subject. Int units, this variable indicates the number of units or credit associated with the subject, typically reflecting its workload. Constructor. The class has constructor, which allows you to create instances of the subject class. The constructor takes the three parameters, ID, subject name, and units. When a new subject object is created, these parameters used to initialize the corresponding instance variable. Last is getter methods. The class provides getter methods for each of the private instance variables. First is get ID, returns the ID of the subject. Second, get subject name, returns the name of the subject. Third is get units, return to the number of units associated with the subject. These getter methods provide control access to the privacy data of a subject object, allowing other parts of the program to retrieve information about a subject without directly accessing or modifying the internal data. This encapsulation is a fundamental concept in object-oriented programming and helps ensure data integrity and maintainability in your code. Okay. Part 4 is next reporter is Bermas.
Thank you. And now my name is Giancarlo Silvermas. So this is my report. Import statements. The code includes import statements at the beginning to import necessary classes from the Java standard library, including array list, and scanner. The second is main method. The main method serves as the entry point of the program. It creates and manages student records and subject records using lists of student and subject objects. The third is data structures. Two lists are defined at the start of the main method. List, students A list to store student records where each student is an instant of the student class. Then list, parentheses subjects, a list to store subject records where each subject is an instance of the subject class. The fourth is scanner. An instant of the scanner, class name, scanner is created to handle user input. Fifth is the main menu. The program runs at infinite loop controlled by while parentheses true that displays a menu of options to the user. The menu includes the following options: create new student record, create new subject record, enlist a subject to a student, remove a subject from a student, display details of subject specific student, display details of all students, display details of all students enlisted in a selected subject, then exit the program. The next is the user input. The program prompts the user to enter their choice by displaying enter your choice and reading an integer using scanner.next int parentheses. It then consumes the new line character with scanner.next line parentheses to prepare for the next input. The next is switch statement. The user's choice is processed using a switch statement, depending on the chosen option. The program performs various tasks. This includes creating new student or subject records, enrolling or removing subject from students, and displaying student and subject details. Last is the exiting the program. If the user selects 8 in the menu, it means exit. The program displays goodbye and exits using system.exit. And that's all for my part. And next reporter is Marquez.
Dangal greetings, I am Ana Marie Marquez and this is my part. For case 1, create a new student record. The user selects option 1 to create a new student record. The program prompts the user to input specific details for the student. Student ID, an integer representing the unique identifier for the student. First name, a string representing the student name. Last name, a string representing the student last name. Course, a string representing the course or program. The program reads these input values using scanner.int and scanner.nextLine for each input field. A new student object is then created using the input values and it is initialized with the provided data. The newly created student is added to the student list using the student.add statement, which stores information about all the students. For the case 2, create a new subject record. The user selects option 2 to create a new subject record. The program prompts the user to input specific details for the subject. Subject ID, an integer representing the unique identifier for the subject. Subject name, a string representing the name of the subject. Units, an integer representing the number of units or credits for the subject. Similar to the student record creation, the program reads these input values and then uses them to create a new subject object. The newly created subject is added to the subjects list using the subject.add statement, which stores information about all the subjects. These two cases demonstrate how the program collects user input to create new students and subject records and adds them to their respective lists for later management and retrieval. The program can continue to perform other operations from the main menu after creating this record. The next reporter is Dolando.
Case 3. Enlist a subject to a student. The user select option 3 to enlist a subject to a student. The program prompts the user to input 2 pieces of information: student ID, the unique identifier of student; subject ID, the unique identifier of subject to be enlisted. The program reads this input value using scanner next int and scanner next line for each input field. The code then proceeds to search for the specified student and subject using a loop. It initializes student to enroll and subject to enroll as null reference. It iterates through the student list to find a student with a matching ID. It iterates through the subject and list to find a subject with a matching ID. If both the student and subject are found, example, student to enroll and subject to enroll are not null, it means that both of the student and subject exist. If both the student and subject exist, the code enlisted the subject to the student using the student to enroll subject method. This method adds the subject to the list of subject in which the student is enrolled. Finally, the code prints a message confirming the enrollment of the subject to the student. If either the student or the subject is not found, it prints message indicating the student or subject was not found. Case 3. Remove a subject from a student. The user select option 4 to remove a subject from student. The program prompts the user to input 2 pieces of information: student ID, the unique identifier of student; subject ID, the unique identifier of subject to be removed. Like in the previous case, the program read this input value using scanner next int and scanner next line for each input field. The code then search for the specified student and subject. It iterates through the student list to find a student with a matching ID. Within the student enrolled subject list, it iterates to find a subject with a matching ID. If both the student and subject are found, example student and subject are not null, it means that the specified student is enrolled in the specified subject. If the student and subject are found, the code removes the subject from the student list of enrolled subject using the sRemove subjects method. Finally, the code print a message confirming the removal of the subject from the student. These cases demonstrate how the program allows user to manage enrollment of subject by student, enabling both the addition and removal of the subject from the student record. Thank you. Next reporter, Jake Abriam.
Case 5. Display details of a specific student. The user selects option 5 to display the details of a specific student. The program prompts the user to input the student ID for the student they want to display. The program reads the input using scanner next line and scanner next line. The code then iterates through the list of students using a for each loop. For each student in the list, it checks if the ID of the current student matches the ID provided by the user in student ID to display. If there is a match, it means the program has found the specific student to display. If a matching student is found, the code proceeds to print various details of the student. Example, student ID, first name, last name, course, enrolled subjects listing each subject's name. After displaying the details of the specific student, the loop is exceeded using the break statement. Case 6. Display details of all students. The user selects option 6 to display the details of all students. The code iterates through the list students using for each loop. For each student in the list, it prints various details of the student, similar to what it is done in case 5. Examples, student ID, first name, last name, course, enrolled subjects, or listing each subject's name. After displaying the details of one student, the program moves on to the next student in the list and repeats the process until all students have been displayed. Each student details are separated by a line break to make the output clear and readable. These cases allow users to interview the details of specific student by providing their student ID. Case 5, or view the details of all students in the system. Case 6, it provides a way to retrieve and display information about students and their enrollment in subjects. Next reporter, Yalong.
Case 7. Display students and listed in a selected subject. This user selects option 7 to display the students who are enrolled in a specific subject. The program prompts the user to input the subject ID for the subject they want to display the enrolled students for. The program reads the input using scanner.nextInt and scanner.nextLine. The code then iterates through the list of students or students using a for each loop for each student in the list. It checks if any of the subjects enrolled by the student matches the subject ID provided by the users. Open and close parenthesis subject ID to display. This check is performed using getEnrolledStudent.string.anyMatch subject ID equals to subject ID to display construct. If a match is found, it means that the student is enrolled in the selected subject, and the program proceeds to display student details. For each student that is enrolled to selected subject, the code displays the following details: student ID, first name, last name, and course. After displaying the details of a student enrolled in a selected subject, the program adds a line break to separate the information for each student. Case 8, exit the program. If the user selects option 8, the program fades goodbye. To provide a closing message for the user, it then exits the program by calling system exit, which terminates the program with a status of code of 0. Report case. In case the user provides an invalid or unrecognized choice, other than options 1 to 8, the program will print valid choice. Please enter a valid option. These cases allow users to either view student enrolled in a specific subject, exit the program, or handle any other option that is not explicitly recognized report case.
Next reporter is Raibak Hasan.
The output starts by initializing two lists: student, a list to store instance of student class; subject, another list to store instance of the subject class. A scanner object is created to read user input. The program enters continuous loop while true to display menu to the user and respond to their input. The menu is displayed with the following option. Number 1, create a new record student. 2, create a new subject record. 3, enlist a subject to the student. 4, remove subject from a student. 5, display detail of students. 6, display all details of students. 7, display all student details in list in a selected subject. And 8 is the exit. If the user chooses to create student record option, they are prompted to their student ID, first name, last name, and a course. New student object is created added to the student list. If user chooses to create a new subject record, option 2, they are prompted to enter a subject ID name and units. A new subject object is created added to the object list. The user chooses the enlist subject to student, option 3, they provide the student ID and subject ID. The program check of both student and subject exists, and if so, enroll the subject for that student. If the user chooses the remove the subject from student, option 4, they provide the subject ID and the student ID and the subject ID. The program check if both the student and subject exists, and if the subject is enrolled for student, it removes the subject from the student list of enrolled subject. If user chooses to display details of a specific student, option 5, they provide the student ID and the program finds the student ID and display their details including enrolled subjects. If user chooses to display details of all student, option 6, the program iterates through the list of students and display the details of each student including enrolled subject. If the user chooses to display student in list in a selected subject, Option 7. They provide the subject ID and the program finds all students who are enrolled in subject and display their details. If user chooses to enter exit program, option 8, the program display say goodbye and exits by calling system exit. Terminating the program, if the user enter invalid choice, the program display invalid choice. And after completing the selecting operation or displaying information on the program, return to the main menu to await the next user choice. The loop continues until the user chooses option 8, which called exit, at which point the program exits gracefully. The program is designed to provide a main menu-driven interface for managing student and subject record.